Hi, welcome back. This is part 6, I think. Yeah, 6 in making a cherry liquor cabinet. In the last video I left off after I had done all the assembly and the glue up of the case, and in this video I'm moving on to building drawers. So I'm getting ready to start on these drawers, and the sides of the drawers, the sides and backs of the drawers are going to be made from maple. Being as I only needed a couple pieces, the easiest thing for me to do was just to go and get some S4S. But you can see that this one piece has quite the bow on it. So even though it's S4S, it's not straight, so I'm still going to have to cut these up and joint and plane them. Okay, so the next thing I need is the drawer front for that main drawer, the only one that actually looks like a drawer, inside the cabinet. And because that sits directly behind the door, or is going to sit directly behind the door, I need to be able to make a pull in it that's flush with the front of the drawer and therefore goes in. So I'm going to have to cut out some material. So I need a thicker drawer front on that. I was looking and I don't have a piece of material that's thick enough that I like how it looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to laminate two pieces together to give me the total thickness that I need. And what I've got here is the piece of wood that I cut those back panels from, which I think actually makes sense anyway. I like the way this grain looks, but also because it's the same piece of wood as that back panel, it's going to be a perfect color match. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to cut it down to size, I'll mill it up, I'll cut it in half, and I'll make sure to book match where I flip that over. So the grain, even when you pull out the drawer, the grain will be book matched across the top of that drawer, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I have my drawer face cut and I've got it just barely able to fit into this opening, which is exactly how I want it. You can see I really don't have any gap to speak of around this. Not to say that I won't, but for right now, this is how I want it. I want this just super tight piston fit. Now, after I dovetail the sides into it, there's a little bit of cleanup that needs to happen to the sides, and that's when I'll do the final fit of the drawer to get it the perfect fit of what I'm looking for. But as you can see right now, there's no wiggle room in it whatsoever. It won't budge. In fact, I have to be careful about putting it in, or I won't be able to get it out. So before I can start actually cutting the dovetails, I've got a couple things to take care of here at the table saw. So what I need to do is go and cut the dados for all of the drawer bottoms on all of my pieces first. Okay, before I start laying out dovetails, there's still one more step to do, and that's to establish the depth of the dovetails and to cut a small rabbet, a very shallow rabbet, probably only about 1/8 of an inch deep, into my 4 drawer sides. So to start off with, I'm going to take my hidden drawer side. Because I laminated this front piece onto it, that will make an excellent shoulder line if I can match it. So there we go. And what I'll need is to establish that shoulder. And I'm only doing this on the fronts of those drawer sides where I'm going to have my half-blind dovetails. Those are going to be the most visible. Now for my main drawer, my measurement's going to be a little bit different. I want to go deeper on this one. How deep exactly doesn't really matter. So I just set that to, it's kind of a random depth. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll establish that shoulder line. And then I'm just going to leave this marking gauge locked into that setting, and I'll double check after I put the rabbet in it and make the same marks on the side of the drawer. Okay, so I'm getting ready to start cutting the dovetails, and I'm going to be starting with the half-blind dovetails that are going to be on the drawer faces. And I'm also starting off specifically on that hidden drawer, that smaller one, just because I'll let that be my warm-up piece. The main drawer is going to, those joints will be seen more, obviously, because they're not hidden, but they're more of a showpiece. So I'm starting on the smaller one, and I have my 2 sides here, both of which have been rabbeted across the joint, and I've got my drawer front here. So the first thing I need to do is to take and carry over the mark from this shoulder around to the rest of the drawer side. And so I'm just setting my marking gauge right to that same shoulder. The reason I didn't carry it over the first time is just in case the cut wasn't perfect against the line. I can readjust now. And the drawer sides, that goes around all four sides. On the drawer front, all I want is to mark along the side, not the top or bottom. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step is now I have to readjust my marking gauge to be the thickness of this rabbited piece here where the joint is actually going to be cut. And I'm going to use that to mark the inside of my drawer. So now that I've got everything marked, it's time to lay out the dovetails. And when I do this, the dovetails themselves don't have to be symmetrical all the way across. You can vary the sizes. In fact, I like that look. Some people don't. I do. The only one thing I need to be concerned about is I need my dado for the drawer to be within one of the tails. So I'm going to start my tails on the side of that. What I'll do is I'll come in about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch. That should be 1/4 inch in. So I'll come in 1/8 of an inch for my pins for each side. And then on these smaller drawer sides, I'm going to go with 2 tails, 3 pins. Well, 2 tails, 1 pin, and 2 half pins, but I'm going to go with 2 tails. So this is what I want basically is in the center. I want another pin. So that would be my center. And I want my pin to be about 1/4 inch wide there, I think. See how that looks. And again, I'll make the same mark on both sides. All right, to clean this up, I'm just going to use some chisels, some very sharp chisels. I made sure to touch them up before I got started. And the key with cleaning these up with chisels is to have control, which means holding the chisels close to the work. And you can see I've got my fingers where they're kind of acting as a depth stop as I get into this. Now I'm going to clean up halfway down from each side. Get the other side. Okay, now to mark these out on the drawer fronts, you can see I've got my drawer front set in the vise to the same height as a plane here, which is just basically being used for a spacer. I also have a piece of scrap wood that fits into my dado for the drawer bottoms, and what I'm using that for is to make sure I've got a perfect reference to lock that in the correct place, because my drawer front isn't the exact same size as my sides with that bottom overhang that I needed. So I've got that set in right there. I'm going to hold this down tight. I've got it resting against that rabbet on the back side here, locked in with that piece of scrap wood. So I'm in a good spot, and I'm just going to mark this out with a knife. Now, this is where precision is needed. I could go a little bit loose with the pencil marks before, because I knew that here I was going to make a precise mark to whatever these tails ended up being. And so that's what I need to do now. with the drawer fronts and the dovetails, the half blind dovetails in the front done, I'm going to turn my attention now to the drawer backs. So I went and ripped off the bottom edge of both drawer backs to remove that dado for the drawer bottom, because the drawer bottom is going to be coming in from the back, and so I don't need it. So by cutting it off now, that'll help me when it comes to spacing out all of my dovetails. So the next thing I need to do is to reset my depth gauge. So that is now set, and I am going to, on the drawer sides, mark all the way around, and on the drawer backs, I'm going to mark just the two faces. Just for the sake of showing you another option, I am going to use a jig and cut these rear dovetails on the bandsaw. And these are through dovetails, not blind or half blind. But because I'm going to be doing it on the bandsaw, all I need is marks on the end here. Laying out the through dovetails really isn't that much different than the half blinds. I've got my drawer backs in the vise, and I'm just going to make sure I'm referencing off the top edge of the drawer. I have to make sure it's held down nice and tight, flush on the outside. The light has all but disappeared on the inside corner there. I'm going to make sure that I hold it down tight while I make my marks. And then I do want to make sure that I'm carrying those lines straight down. To my marking gauge mark. I'm going to make sure to mark out what the waist is so that I can be sure that I'm not cutting into it, into the wrong part. So that's going to wrap this one up. As you can see, the drawer is complete. All my dovetails are done here, and as well as on the hidden drawer on the side. And you'll also notice that there is no drawer pull on the front of this. I talked about that earlier, the need to have a thicker drawer front so that I can make a drawer pull, but it is actually complete. In fact, this is the drawer pull right here, and it's magnetic. It removes. And this is also going to be the same pull that's used on the door. In fact, it'll just sit there most of the time. You'll pull it off and be able to use it here, as well as the hidden storage here and the hidden drawer on the side. I didn't cover that in this video because the video was already getting pretty long, so I'm going to move that out into the next video, which will be out probably a lot faster than this one was. So watch for that. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you on the next video.